Hello everyone, I'm Cole from the Kingdom, and today we're talking more about Mass Effect 3 and how I would have done things differently. Let me reiterate, Mass Effect is still my #1 favorite game series, but that doesn't mean I think the games are perfect. Mass Effect 3 had a bunch of issues, even aside from the ending, and that's mainly what I'm talking about today. Before we get into the Mass Effect 3 stuff, we do need to talk about the end of Mass Effect 2. The Human Reaper. See, when I first saw that, I thought it was cool because it implied they saw us as their biggest enemies, although the shape was inefficient for what a Reaper does. Based on the final shot of 2, they definitely intended to have each Reaper be a unique shape, but that idea ended up being scrapped. I'm guessing because they realized the organic form was a highly inefficient and illogical shape for a Reaper. And then there's Harbinger. They never explain in spoken dialogue who or what Harbinger is. They only explain that in the Codex. So you'd be forgiven for assuming the Collector General was called Harbinger, and the Reaper he's looking up at the end is just some Reaper. So here's how I would have ended Mass Effect 2. You get that whole scene where you're going into the final room and EDI says the superstructure is a Reaper, and then Shepard says not just any Reaper, dramatic music, a human Reaper. Yeah, no, scratch that. Just have the big reveal when EDI says, is a Reaper. Have the thing come into frame, do the dramatic music, but it's just an early stage of your normal Sovereign class Reaper. Then you have a fight where you shoot the tombs, but I would also draw it out more by needing to shoot more supports and stuff. Then have a conversation with the Elusive Man. Then, for the final boss fight, the Collector General comes in and says, come up with some words that basically explain that it's a thrall of the Reaper called Harbinger, the oldest Reaper in existence. So now we go into Mass Effect 3, and most of it stays the same. One of the biggest problems I have with it is the lack of dialogue options. Not just the fact that we only get 2 for the most part, but there is so much forced dialogue, where it feels like the game is more about what Commander Shepard says and not what I say. There are more than a few lines where I think, my Shepard would not have said that. And then, there is so much dialogue that is clearly catering to newcomers to the series. Dragon Age Inquisition had a bunch of that too, but it was way more seamless. Throughout Mass Effect 3, there are so many times I'll ask a question, and the character will explain something that happened in the past, and I'm there like, I know, I was there. And a fair bit of the time, they don't even answer the question I asked. A lot of the dialogue makes Shepard come across as an idiot. Maybe that's a little harsh, but all this stuff adds up and it bothers me. So, fix that, make most of the story play out the same way, except for one major thing. Kai Lang. Okay. Cybernetically enhanced acrobatic space ninja. Alright, okay, I can get on board with that. Not as a nemesis for Shepard. Kai Lang wasn't a bad concept, but he was not the proper nemesis for Shepard. Maybe story-wise it could have worked if it was a book or a comic book or something, but in-game it just didn't match. The battle with the clone in the Citadel DLC is closer to what I would have expected from Shepard's nemesis. Gameplay-wise, I mean. Now I have a full design on who I would have used instead of Kai Lang, and he's going to get his own video. Now, in addition to fixing a lot of the dialogue, I would have further explained what was going on with the Crucible. I talked about this in one of my Mass Effect 3 ending videos, but here's the thing. Cerberus got some of the data. Therefore, the scientists working on the Crucible weren't just following the schematics. There were some missing pieces. So in addition to building it, they were trying to figure out what was missing and make sure it worked when deployed. Also explained that more scientists were working on new weapons to fight the Reapers, studying them, studying indoctrination, etc. I would have also explained sooner why Cerberus suddenly had a massive army. They only explain it when you attack the Elusive Man's base, that they abducted colonists and implanted them with Reaper tech in order to fashion them into infantry. I'm guessing they also made use of Seeker swarms to do that. I mean, I have a problem with how Cerberus is presented anyway, but that's for another video. I would have also expanded more missions like the Elcor homeworld. That was a disservice to everyone involved. Sticking with the plot of Mass Effect 3, I think it's at Thessia, specifically at the end, that the plot starts to get real flimsy. I know this is a horrible insult, and I am truly sorry, but in all honesty, it starts feeling like something my 12-year-old self would have written. This is what happens. Kai Lang shows up just as you get inside the temple that was somehow not destroyed. I guess that was part of the Reaper's plans, so that's fine, I can understand that. But then we have a really annoying boss fight, and for some reason don't shoot down the gunship. Then the gunship fires rockets, and this thin floor crumbles so easily. Who designed this place with such a thin floor with no supports over a bottomless pit? Why is there a bottomless pit? And I can see someone holding onto this jagged rock here, but not while wearing that armor. It would have made more sense if they fell down to a lower level and watched Kai Lang escape from there. Then, it's just now that Shepard asked the crew if anyone knows where Cerberus is hiding, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Well, by yet another miracle, Traynor tracked Kai Lang's shuttle and didn't tell anyone until Shepard asked. And then they go to Sanctuary. I actually like the way they built that up in the background, and it was a pretty decent mission. But the kicker here is that Miranda planted a tracker on Kai Lang. That he didn't notice? Alright, let me see if I got this plan from the Elusive Man's perspective. Lang, go to Thessia, wait for Shepard to unlock the Prothean VI, then retrieve it. Before you come back with this vital asset that we literally need to complete our plans, go to Sanctuary, try to kill Lawson, though it's cool if you don't, and retrieve any more data. Because we don't have any other agents that could possibly do this, even though we've had direct contact with Sanctuary this whole time, and all relevant data was definitely already sent to us. Don't check your person for any tracking devices during the fairly long journey back to me, and then we will somehow have enough time to crack the Prothean VI and get me off station to where the catalyst is. Meanwhile, you and the VI will stay here for no reason. Did I get that right? When I had originally recorded this, I had forgotten about a video you can find on Chronos Station of Lang delivering the VI, then being ordered to Sanctuary. However, this creates a plot hole because Traynor tracked him from Thessia to Sanctuary, and that wouldn't have been possible if he stopped at Chronos Station. It also kind of breaks the timeline because, although it is based on player choices, the game is set up to immediately go to Sanctuary. So how did Lang have time to do this? Even so, he shouldn't have needed to go to Sanctuary at all. Cerberus should have already received any relevant data. Now the biggest thing that bothers me out of all this is Miranda's tracker nonsense. Are we seriously supposed to ignore that Miranda definitely knows where the Elusive Man's base is? She was literally there at the beginning of 2. She was one of the Elusive Man's top agents. Did he really do that whole put a bag over her head thing so she couldn't see where they were going? Even if they did keep that a secret from one of their most loyal and highest-ranking members, we know she breached protocol a handful of times to view classified info. She was familiar with Cerberus encryption. The Miranda you gave us definitely would have found out on her own. Even if she somehow didn't know where it was before, she absolutely would have at least figured it out at the end of 2 or in between 2 and 3. Even if she didn't, EDI would have. Extrapolation of nav data is one thing, but they had a direct line to the Elusive Man that she could have traced. If not before, at least at the end after she's been unshackled. She has access to a lot of other Cerberus data that wasn't relevant to her job. So between Miranda and EDI, Cerberus should have been dealt with immediately. For that matter, am I supposed to buy that the goddamn Shadow Broker didn't have more resources in his hundreds of years of operation than Cerberus got in less than 3 decades? I do not buy for a second that the Elusive Man was careful enough to hide from the Shadow Broker. He clearly had an agent place a camera on the Normandy and or hacked into it. If Liara got his resources, then she should have known exactly where to find the Elusive Man. So all that is what bothers me the most about Mass Effect 3's plot. At least one of those characters knew where the Elusive Man was, but we just kind of ignore that. So how would I have done things differently?